Hey, I am Dr. Pilke, and I will be your instructor for 562. Just wanted to jump on here real quick. I got a text message from one of your peers that I had not uploaded the current syllabus. I apologize. I have fixed it now. There are only 3 textbooks that you need for this course, and then it's recommended that you get the DSM-5 TR. It's not required for the course. It's just something that you'll need for practice if you're going to be a clinician moving forward. Doesn't matter if it's the hardback or the desk reference copy. But again, not required, just the other 3. And I've listed them on this announcement. I made some changes to the course shell. So this is the first time that 562 has been built by someone else in an attempt to standardize it. So when I've taught this course before, I did my own thing. And I'm learning much harder to make sense of and try to fill in gaps of a course where somebody else has created it, because you're trying to figure out what were they thinking and planning, and where are the missing parts, kind of thing. So it took me some time to kind of make sense of, okay, what is here? And then how do I reconcile my own teaching philosophy and my understanding of this content, my own experience of feedback from students, and within the realm of what I'm allowed to modify, what do I do? So first, the original shell came with 5 textbooks, which included the DSM-5 TR, and way too much reading, way too much reading. And that's not just my personal opinion. That has to do with how learning occurs. So let me clarify for a second. Learning is a physical development in the brain, right? So it's a construction of neurons and the connection between them to build neural pathways. And the more that those pathways are used, the more they become reinforced. So because it's a physical development, it literally takes time. So in developing courses, it's imperative that as an instructor, we're mindful of the amount of time that we have students engaging new information, right? Because just throwing a bunch of new information at you is not going to do anything to promote learning and mastery. Even if you do things like quizzes and tests, what you're going to be stuck with is short-term memory, a whole lot of that throughout the course. And then when they leave, that you'll be lucky if they have, 5 minutes worth of content, because the brain doesn't have time to assimilate that information and build it into a schema. Okay. And so schemas are how we cluster information together. Um, and that's sort of like if I was to ask you, what are things that fly? You might say, airplanes, birds, kites, insects, things like that. If I say, what are living things that fly? You might say birds, insects, blah, blah, blah. And then if I say, what kind of birds fly? And then you would start naming the birds that you knew. Each one of those different clusters of groupings are schemas. Okay. And when it comes to learning, if we can tie the new content to the schemas you already have, the information will more quickly go into long-term memory and you'll hold on to it. If you're having to develop entirely new schemas, which with clinical practice skills, you're going to end up having to do that, it takes time. Okay. And so the more that we are forcing you to engage brand new content without the opportunity to reflect and review and reflect and review, you're less likely to learn that information. The other issue is that learning is very individual. We all have different learning styles. You might be more auditory, more visual. You might be a kinesthetic learner, or you might be a multimodal learner. You have some variation of those. And what that means is that your brain engages information in a unique way in order to learn. So, like, for example, I'm a multimodal learner. I'm almost equally auditory and visual. So what does that mean? Doesn't mean that I can learn using either or. It means I need both presentation types of information in order to gain mastery, which means I need to be able to be introduced to new information. I need to be able to see examples. I need to be able to ask questions and get answers. And that's part of how I develop mastery. When a course is heavy on just reading and that is how you're supposed to learn, it literally creates sort of this pipeline where the only truly successful learners will be those who naturally learn that way anyway. And anybody who is more hands-on in their approach, who needs visual examples, who needs discussion back and forth, they're going to struggle. And even if they get a good grade, they're not going to be able to maintain the information. So, what I did was, as I design all of my courses, I tried to make sure that I was engaging multiple ways of the same information for all of the different potential learning styles. Okay. And this has to do with just um, understanding how learning works and being educated in how to educate, if that makes sense. Not just knowing the knowledge, because you can know stuff all day long, and that doesn't mean that you can teach anybody anything. So you have reading, but the majority of your reading will actually be clinically relevant. So it'll be like reading intervention fact sheets where it tells you what the intervention is, what it's used for, connecting it to the diagnoses. What does it look like? How does it break down? What are the components of the intervention? What are the steps? Also, any worksheets that can be used to help kind of guide in the intervention and help you work your way through it with the client. I've included those as well. So you'll be looking at worksheets of, oh, this is something that I could use when I'm working with the client. This is what it looks like. And also videos of mock therapy sessions of each of the interventions so that you can see it in, being implemented. So how do we take knowledge of what's something that's supposed to be done and then make sense of it? What does that look like in practice? So for those that are more strong visual learners, those videos will likely be more helpful, as well as the worksheets. And for those that are more kinesthetic, the worksheets will be super helpful in sort of bringing everything together. So that's why I chose to knock off two of the textbooks, just keep the three, to minimize some of those readings so that we can focus more on the actual practice relevant content in order to introduce you to the information, allow you time to reflect on the information, allow you time to review the information, and then through the assignments, allow you opportunity to practice them. The other change that I made was I got rid of all of the original assignments and created new ones. There aren't a lot. I think there's maybe 5 or 6, not super lengthy. I don't want you to freak out. There are no big papers. There are no quizzes, no tests. You're going to complete some of the therapy worksheets um, so that you can kind of get an idea of how they work. You will do 2 mock interviews, brief, like 5 to 10 minutes on something imaginary, no real stuff. You can do it on Zoom with anybody that you know, just to kind of practice to get your feet wet, try on some of the skills. And then you have a treatment plan development. And I think that's like 1 page or less. It does. And I literally said, these are the questions I want you to answer. And I don't care what format you write it in. You could literally have the question and then write your answer. So because the whole point of all of the assignments is to reinforce your understanding of these skills and to have an opportunity to practice them. And then in our live sessions, we'll do that too. So again, going back to learning as a physical development, it takes time. And so even though it looks like we're just kind of honing in on specific things and not doing the traditional, let's read 1,500 pages of textbooks and then take some quizzes and write some really big papers, because that actually doesn't reinforce any learning at all. So everything is going to be literally learning practice, which is also practice relevant. Okay, so that's why it took me so long. So I apologize for the delay and I appreciate your patience and thank you for texting me. Please, yes, if you have any questions or need anything, text me. It's the fastest way to reach me. And I've gone through the course a couple more times to make sure that I haven't got any more holes in there. But if you see something that looks funny or you're expecting something and it's missing, you let me know. Okay. Um, all right. That's it. If you have any questions, reach out. Otherwise, thank you so much for your patience. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all next week on the 31st.